Far beyond Earth's atmosphere, in the cold void of space, the Drakthar armada silently approached. Their obsidian warship slid through the darkness, engines purring with a hum of gravitational manipulation. To the Drakthar, Earth was just another conquest, primitive, unguarded, and ripe for the taking. On the command deck of the flagship Obsidian Fury, Lord Xyrex stood tall, his reptilian eyes narrowing at the blue-green planet below. "Pathetic," he hissed. "They've barely scratched the surface of space travel, let alone harness the true forces of the cosmos. This will be over quickly." His words dripped with arrogance, the confidence of a predator that had never known fear. "Reports from our scouts confirm no significant defenses, my lord," Lieutenant Aricheto added, her tone dutiful. She gestured to the holographic display, which flickered with data gathered from their covert probes. "Their military is grounded in archaic technologies, rocketry, chemical-based weapons, and," she scoffed, "rudimentary satellites." Xyrex let out a low growl of amusement. "The humans don't even control gravity," he mused. "They still see it as a simple force, unaware of its potential as the ultimate weapon." "No! They're insects in comparison to the Drakthar. And what do we do with insects, Aricheto?" "We crush them," she replied with a cruel smile. Meanwhile, on Earth, there was no inkling of the impending doom. In the bustling streets of New York, Dr. Emily Hawking sat at her desk, eyes glued to a cluster of equations on her monitor. She was one of the few who had begun to scratch the surface of gravitational anomalies, those tiny disturbances that hinted at something much larger. Her research had been dismissed by the broader scientific community, labeled as too theoretical, too out there to have practical application. But Emily knew better. She had seen the data. Something was coming, and it wasn't natural. "Emily, are you still working?" her colleague, Alan, called out as he leaned against the doorframe. "It's late. You should go home." She shook her head without looking away from her screen. "I can't. There's a disturbance in the data. Something I can't explain. Gravity fluctuations that aren't from any known source." Alan sighed. "You're obsessed. You've been chasing these anomalies for months. Maybe it's time to take a break, clear your head." Emily finally looked up, her brow furrowed with concern. "I don't think it's a coincidence, Alan. The pattern is too specific, too deliberate." Before Alan could respond, the building shuddered. A low, distant rumble rolled through the city, rattling windows and sending a ripple of unease through the population. Emily's eyes widened as she rushed to her computer. "That wasn't an earthquake," she muttered, her fingers flying over the keyboard. She pulled up a live satellite feed, her heart sinking at what she saw. Dark, unnatural shadows cast by something massive in Earth's upper atmosphere. At that moment, the invasion began. Without warning, beams of searing light shot down from the sky, obliterating key communication hubs and military outposts. The Drakthar had made their move, striking with the precision of predators who had done this countless times before. The skies over major cities darkened as the alien warships descended, their presence ominous and overwhelming. Panic erupted in the streets as humanity struggled to comprehend what was happening. Back aboard the Obsidian Fury, Xyrex watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. "Pathetic," he repeated. "They scramble like insects, unaware of the hammer about to fall." But as he observed, a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. It was too easy. There was something about this planet, something he couldn't quite place. He shook the thought away, dismissing it as paranoia. "Prepare the gravitic pulse cannons," he ordered. "Let's show these Earthlings the true power of gravity." As the Drakthar prepared to unleash their weapon, Emily stood frozen in her lab, staring at the data on her screen. The gravity fluctuations, now she understood. It wasn't just an anomaly. It was a signal, a warning, and it was only the beginning. The storm had arrived, but humanity wasn't as helpless as the Drakthar believed. The world was in chaos, but inside a hidden military facility deep in the Nevada desert, calm and determination prevailed. Dr. Emily Hawking paced the length of the underground lab, her mind racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The alien invasion had confirmed her worst suspicions, but it had also unlocked the key to something far greater, an unprecedented opportunity to turn the tide. Project Gravitas, she whispered under her breath as she examined the massive particle accelerator humming in the center of the room. The project had been classified even beyond top secret, known only to a handful of government officials and a select group of scientists. It was the culmination of decades of research into gravitational manipulation, spearheaded by Emily and her team. What had started as a theoretical exploration had rapidly transformed into a last-ditch effort to defend Earth. General Paul Hardy, the grizzled leader of Earth's newly formed defense coalition, strode into the lab, his heavy boots echoing in the silence. "Dr. Hawking," he said, his voice rough but laced with respect, "I hope you have good news." Emily stopped pacing and met his eyes. "We do. The alien ships are using gravity-based technology to stabilize their propulsion systems. That's why we've been seeing those strange gravitational fluctuations. It's their tech operating in our atmosphere. But, General," her voice grew more intense, "we've developed something that can counter it. We can use gravity as a weapon." Hardy raised an eyebrow. "Weaponize gravity? How?" Emily gestured to the massive machine in the center of the lab. "We've been working on creating localized gravitational distortions, what we call gravity bombs. By collapsing a specific area of space-time, we can generate a gravitational field so intense that it can crush anything caught in its radius. Ships, weapons, even energy shields, they'll all be torn apart by the sheer force." Hardy's expression shifted from skepticism to realization. "You're saying we can turn their own technology against them?" "Exactly," Emily said, her eyes bright with determination. "They're using gravity to control their ships, but they're overconfident. They don't think anyone else can manipulate the same forces. We can disable their fleets, destroy their command centers, and stop them before they can wipe us out." The general crossed his arms, thinking, how soon can this be deployed? Emily hesitated. "We've only tested it in controlled environments, but we don't have time for more trials. We need to deploy it now if we're going to stand a chance." Hardy nodded. "Then let's make it happen. We'll take the fight to them." Within hours, the gravity bombs were loaded onto a fleet of stealth aircraft and space-ready drones, their pilots briefed on the delicate balance of this unprecedented weapon. The key was timing. Activate the gravity bomb too early, and the distortion could collapse under its own weight, failing to reach the target. Too late, and the alien ships would have time to counter or evade. It was a gamble, but one humanity had no choice but to take. Emily stood in the command center, monitoring the deployment in real time. The control room was tense, every screen flickering with data feeds from the advancing fleet. Hardy stood beside her, arms crossed, his eyes never leaving the central display. "Initiate the first strike," Hardy ordered, his voice steady despite the stakes. A drone approached one of the alien battleships, an immense, angular behemoth hovering over the Pacific Ocean. Its gravity field shimmered faintly, a ripple of energy visible to those who knew where to look. The drone systems hummed as it locked onto the target. Gravity bomb ready for detonation in 5, 4, 3. Emily's breath hitched as she watched the countdown. The screen flickered, and for a brief moment, the alien ship appeared to shimmer as though caught in a heat wave. Then, with a violent lurch, the ship crumpled inward, as if pulled into an invisible vortex. Metal twisted, beams snapped, and within seconds, the ship was nothing more than debris, swallowed by its own collapsed field. The room erupted in cheers, but Emily stayed focused. This was only the beginning. "Direct hit," one of the technicians called out. "The ship's down, but there are more on the way." Emily exhaled, her hands shaking slightly. "We need to keep up the pressure. They'll adapt quickly if we don't act fast. Deploy the next wave." Hardy glanced at her. "Are you sure this will hold up against a full-scale invasion?" She nodded, though the weight of uncertainty lingered in her chest. "It has to. We've shown them that gravity isn't just a force of nature, it's a weapon, and now they know." As more alien ships began to fall, torn apart by the power of humanity's gravity bombs, The tide of the battle shifted. But Emily knew this was far from over. The Drakthar were cunning, and their pride had been wounded. They would come back harder, more relentless. But now, for the first time, Earth had a fighting chance. The night sky above Earth had turned into a battlefield. Alien ships, once ominously dominating the horizon, now hung in ruins, crumpled metal, torn apart by the sheer force of humanity's gravity bombs. But the war was far from over. Dr. Emily Hawking stood in the command center, her eyes glued to the tactical map. The success of the initial strikes had been a turning point, but the Drakthar were adapting quickly. They had recalibrated their ships to withstand some of the gravitational distortions, making the gravity bombs less effective with each passing minute. Worse, the Drakthar's command vessel, the massive warship Obsidian Fury, was still intact, preparing for a counteroffensive that could obliterate Earth's defenses. General Hardy's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've done damage, but they're regrouping. If we don't neutralize the Obsidian Fury, they'll tear us apart." Emily's jaw clenched. The Obsidian Fury had stayed just out of reach, orbiting high above Earth, shielded by its advanced gravitational systems. The gravity bombs weren't enough to penetrate its defenses, but there had to be a way to turn the tide once more. "I have an idea," Emily said, her voice quiet but firm. Hardy turned to her, the weight of battle heavy in his eyes. "The gravity bombs alone won't be enough to destroy their command ship, but if we amplify the gravitational field, we could create a catastrophic event, a singularity, a controlled black hole." Hardy blinked. "A black hole? Are you saying we collapse space itself?" Emily nodded. "The technology is there. The gravity bombs were just the first step. But if we push the system to its absolute limit, we can create a gravitational well powerful enough to destroy even the Obsidian Fury. It's risky, unpredictable. If it goes wrong, we could end up wiping out more than just a ship." Hardy looked at the map, then back at Emily. His face hardened with resolve. "Do it." Within minutes, Emily and her team worked furiously to recalibrate the gravity weapon. The facility buzzed with tension, everyone knowing the weight of the decision. If this failed, Earth wouldn't survive the next wave of attacks. Finally, the modifications were complete. The gravity bomb, now enhanced to its maximum capacity, was loaded onto the last remaining drone capable of reaching the Obsidian Fury. Emily watched as the drone shot up through the atmosphere, climbing higher and higher toward the enemy command ship. Inside the Obsidian Fury, Lord Xyrex stood at the observation deck, watching his fleet regroup. The humans had surprised him, far more resourceful than he had anticipated. But this rebellion would end soon. He would unleash his full power, and Earth would burn. "Prepare the gravitic pulse cannon," Xyrex ordered, his voice cold and certain. "Destroy their last defenses." The drone carrying the gravity bomb approached. Emily's heart pounded as she tracked its progress, watching as it neared the massive alien vessel. The tension in the command center was palpable, every second dragging on as the drone approached its target. "Ready for detonation," the technician announced, his voice shaking slightly. "Now," Emily commanded. The drone released a gravity bomb directly in the path of the Obsidian Fury. At first, nothing happened, just a slight ripple in space around the bomb. But then, with a sudden, violent pull, space itself began to twist. The air around the bomb darkened, as if the light was being swallowed whole. The singularity was forming. On board the Obsidian Fury, alarms blared as the ship systems detected the gravitational anomaly. Xyrex's eyes widened in disbelief as the ship lurched violently, pulled toward the rapidly growing black hole. "Impossible!" he roared, clawed hands gripping the command console. "How are they?" Before he could finish, the gravitational forces became overwhelming. The mighty Obsidian Fury buckled under the pressure, metal groaning and twisting as it was dragged inexorably toward the singularity. In a matter of moments, the ship collapsed inward, crushed by the very force it had once sought to wield. And then, in a flash of light, it was gone, obliterated. Back in the command center, the room erupted in cheers. Emily exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. The Obsidian Fury, the heart of the Drakthar invasion, was no more. General Hardy placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Doctor. You saved us." Emily nodded, but her gaze remained fixed on the screen. The battle was won, but the cost had been great. Earth had been scarred, but they had proven that even the forces of the cosmos could be bent to human will. Gravity, once a mere law of nature, had become humanity's ultimate weapon. "We'll be ready for them next time," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Because deep down, Emily knew this victory was only the beginning. The universe was vast, and humanity had just taken its first step toward mastering it.